Hello, Korea's viewers. We are Lee Hae-sung and
Shambo. Hi.
Hi.
How you going?
This year is a meaningful year. It marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between Korea and Indonesia. Indonesia, which has the world's fourth largest population, is a young country with a high percentage of young people. We are here to talk about Indonesia today on Korea's Focus. We have invited the former Korean ambassador to Indonesia, Changbom Kim, and professor at Sogang University, Changwon Park, and Lati Indraswati from Indonesia, who is currently studying for a PhD in Korea. So could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Well, apa kabar? Yes, 안녕하세요. I served twice in Indonesia. The first time as a political counselor at the embassy in Jakarta from 2003 to 2005, and then last time was a Korean ambassador to Indonesia.
Hello everyone, and selamat sore Anda sekalian. And I'm working as a research professor at Sogang University. I have studied about Indonesian politics almost for 15 years, and I'm so thrilled to introduce Indonesia, my beloved country.
Your beloved country and mine as well. Hello, 안녕하세요, salam kenal. My name is Rati. I'm from Indonesia, and currently I'm studying a PhD degree at Ihwa Women University. I came here under the Higher Education Asian Talent Scholarship.
Whoa. Well, Ambassador, I'm loving this shirt. It seems like it's something maybe traditional Indonesian.
Right. This is called batik. It's a national costume. It represents the whole variety of culture, history.
And I have heard that Indonesia has more than 17,000 islands. So as a country with the most islands in the world, each region must have its own special characteristics.
Right. In Indonesia, there is a very famous passage called From Sabang to Merauke, or in Indonesian, Dari Sabang sampai Merauke. The Sabang is the westernmost town in Sumatra, and while the Merauke is the easternmost town in Papua. A longer distance between the New York City and Los Angeles.
Wow.
Yeah, and the more interesting fact is that there are more than 1,300 ethnic groups living across the archipelago. Each ethnic group has embraced its own culture, so it means that there is a huge diversity, cultural and ethnic diversity in Indonesia.
Another thing that I heard is that Indonesia actually has the largest Muslim population across the planet. That's kind of surprising for me.
Yeah, it's true actually. More than 80% of population is Muslim, but our Indonesian Muslim is very moderate. We believe in religious plurality, and also it's go hand in hand with democracy. But also, if you look further, there's actually other regional places around Indonesia that the minority can be a majority. For example, like Bali is like Hindus majority, right? Yeah, only in Bali, small dot, my hometown.
Oh yeah.
And other part as well, Christianity majority, like especially on the east of Indonesia. So you know, conflict bound to happen with all this diversity in religion, culture, language. But up until now, we actually strive for harmonizations of the society.
Right.
So now shall we talk about the 50 years of diplomatic relations that Korea and Indonesia have built in the past 5 decades?
We have established diplomatic relations in the year 1973, which is a bit overdue because this actually North Korea has established bilateral relations with Indonesia a bit earlier. But the whole path of bilateral relations between South Korea, Korea and Indonesia has been really bringing about remarkable achievements within that 5 decades. In 2017, it has been upgraded to a special strategic partnership, which is the highest characterization of bilateral relations in the international scene. That is the one and only kind of relations that is being enjoyed by both South Korea and Indonesia within 10 ASEAN member states.
VIP, there we go.
Oh yes, right, yeah.
Really happy to hear that.
So what are some key diplomatic developments between the two countries in the past 50 years?
There are several first records. The first investment destination by South Korean company to overseas market. That is Indonesia in the middle of 1960. And then the first oil field that we have developed and identified was also in Indonesia, Madura oil fields in the 1980s. And the first overseas office of KOICA in Jakarta, Indonesia. And the first country that we have exported our T-50 jet fighter, that is the training jet fighter, that was also Indonesia. So I think there's so many first records.
Well, so Ambassador, you actually had 2 times where you were
Right.
working in the diplomatic world of Indonesia and Korea.
My first assignment was from 2003 to 2005. There was a bit of a transformational period because in 2004, Indonesia has for the first time, conducted national election to elect president and vice president.
First time ever?
First time ever.
Okay.
And then there was very peaceful. It's a peaceful transfer of power. And that tradition, legacy, is still continuing on. There are so many challenges coming from natural disasters and all the economic upheavals. But in coming out of those crises and now almost becoming a leading country in the whole of Southeast Asia. So it's 40% of the whole GDP of the ASEAN. And also most of the unicorn startups are coming from Indonesia. So it's very innovative and dynamic. And also it is transitioning into mobile economy very, very quickly, right?
Ambassador, I have heard about the love letters to Indonesian friends.
Before I was leaving Jakarta, after completing my diplomatic service in Indonesia as Korean ambassador, I wrote, it is called Love Letter for Indonesian Friends. Indonesia dan Korea adalah teman sejati dan sehati. That is, Indonesia and Korea are true friends. It's almost indeed a heartmate, sharing the same kind of hearts and minds. So that has been reported by one of the most important daily news, that is Compass.
Professor, what are your thoughts on the bilateral relations between the 2 countries?
My former supervisor described the relationship by using 5 words. They are as good as it gets. So, in fact, the development of the relationship between 2 countries are marvelous. And for example, in 2022, the volume of export from South Korea to Indonesia was more than $10 billion.
So, how about you, Lati? Did the strengthened relations between the 2 countries affect your life as well?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Because I feel that I live in both worlds, right? One, my feed is actually back home, and the other part, I'm here researching as a student on South Korean foreign policy toward ASEAN. A lot of people actually ask me, why South Korea? When I look back in the academic conditions in Indonesia, I realize there is a lack of awareness and lack of interest actually to discuss more about politics with East Asia, especially South Korea. Most of the political scientists look to the West and not to East. Yes, and I think it is my wish when I'm back upon completion of my degree, I would like to serve as a bridge between Indonesia and also South Korea, especially in my capacity in academic setting.
But there are many of exchanges underway in the economic, social, and cultural fields as well. How intense is the Hallyu fever in Indonesia?
My sister is in army, and then my generation is shiny. We love the jewel, Janggam. Like my mom, the Janggam generation. Yes, jewel, and then the winter sonata. But let's actually discuss is the emotional and mental help that Hallyu can provide. I see it with my own eyes because why? My sister graduated during the COVID, right? And it was a very depressing time. And they use actually Hallyu content listening to the music, watching K-drama, and even like, following all their K-pop idols helped them to overcome the anxiety and depressions. The most music for me from BTS is not the recent one, but the old one, No More Dreams. I think that's their first one. Why? Because if you listen to the lyrics, it's really help you, right? And then now since we have like Indonesians joining the K-pop like Dita Karang, and also the new one, Cyan, Zodiac. Now the younger people in Indonesia not only think that they only receive, but they can also be. I think that's a shift in how they see Hallyu and Korean pop.
So while I was in Jakarta as ambassador, I was promoting K-Wave, but at the same time, I was encouraging all entertainment companies and producers to create Indonesia's own iPop.
I heard that Korean companies take a deep interest in Indonesia as well.
I think there's more than 2,000 companies, Korean companies in place in Indonesia. Now the number itself is growing. Recently, this Lotte Chemical that has started to invest into petrochemical industrial complex. It is now on the way, construction is on the way with about $4.2 billion huge investment. And from last year, early part of last year, Hyundai Motors has started to produce the first model that is kind of tailor-made to Indonesian customers, and also Ioniq 5, fully electric vehicle that is now being assembled at the plant in Indonesia. The first electric vehicle to be produced in Indonesia, there was Ioniq 5. And then LG Energy Solution is battery maker. In collaboration with Hyundai Motors, they are now setting up a battery cell manufacturing plant in Indonesia. So sometime in the latter half of next year, 2024, we'll be witnessing the birth of the production of Made in Indonesia battery to be uploaded to Made in Indonesia electric vehicle.
Wow.
So Indonesia is trying to become a hub for EVs, electric vehicles within ASEAN. Indonesia has huge potentials. The first and foremost is natural resources.
Right.
Critical minerals like nickel, copper, and manganese and bauxite, they are all available. So for nickel, which is a critical element for battery production, number one producer in the world is Indonesia, the largest reserve in the whole world.
Right.
So that's why I think the Korean companies are trying to go there.
Other than the natural resources, are there any other reasons that Korean companies are so invested in Indonesia?
Well, I think there's a huge kind of reserve of manpower.
Right.
It's a young country, young population. People are quite friendly and a bit of disciplined.
So at the Korea ASEAN Summit in 2022, Korea shared the vision and the principles of the strategy for a free, peaceful, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. They established the Korea-ASEAN Solidarity Initiative, KASI, for specialized cooperation with ASEAN within the framework of the Indo-Pacific strategy. I think cooperation with Indonesia will be crucial in implementing KASI.
KASI is a kind of comprehensive policy agenda that is embodying every aspect of our partnership with the ASEAN member states. But I think that in order to implement those initiatives, Indonesia is a crucial partner to work together with. Indonesia is a leading country that has been kind of the pulling the ASEAN unity and also the upgrading the weight of ASEAN on the global scene.
And I have heard that the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, between the two countries, which was implemented this year, is decisive for future cooperation in the economic field, and it was concluded while you were in Indonesia.
Actually, the negotiation started in 2012, but it has been suspended for almost 7 years, and it has been reactivated. So with two countries probably sharing the same objective, they have come to an agreement within 1 year time. It's a very speedy negotiation in comparison with other FTAs. So this CEPA, which is kind of the broader FTA, will be a platform upon which two economies will prosper further. And especially the companies who are already in Indonesia or in Korea, they could gain more accessibility, market access, and tariff reduction, tariff elimination. So I think that would be good for both economies.
So, what does Indonesia mean to Korea?
Indonesia is our natural partner. We are sharing common values, and also the people are having close bondage.
Indonesia is one of the most important partners in terms of promoting the democracy together.
And Lati, what does Korea mean to Indonesia?
It's an old friend, but also a partnership where Indonesia can put their trust in welcoming the futures. There's so many global challenges that these two countries can play a role, especially considering the geopolitical situations in the East Asia and Asia Pacific with the major power rivalry. And I think it's very important that both countries go beyond economic only cooperations, but also in political security.
So, talking to the three guests who have been playing a bridging role between the two countries in their respective fields, the time has flown. Indeed. How can I say bye in Indonesian language?
Sampai jumpa lagi.
Yeah.
Sampai
jumpa
lagi.
Yes.
Sampai jumpa lagi. Okay, let's try.
So 1, 2, 3,
Sampai jumpa lagi.